Welcome to the GFF 2024 show. This podcast series brings you a sneak peek into the Global Fintech Fest organized by the Fintech Convergence Council, the Payments Council of India, and the National Payments Corporation of India, happening in Mumbai from the 28th of August to the 30th of August 2024. Over the past couple of years, GFF has grown to become the largest fintech summit globally, playing a pivotal role in shaping the future of global finance. Today we have Noopur Chaturvedi, CEO of NPCI Bharat Bill Pay Limited, who leads innovations in digital bill payments and merchant collections in India. With a robust background in finance and technology, she drives the company's growth and market expansion, enhancing financial inclusion. Prior to her current position, Noopur was country head SMB at PayU, driving revenue growth and solutions for small businesses, and Chief Corporate Business and Alliances at Airtel Payments Bank, fostering strategic partnerships. With a career spanning over 20 years in the banking and financial services industry, including roles at Citibank, ING and Samsung, her expertise spans P&L management, sales and alliances, marketing and product and portfolio management in both B2B and B2C sectors. She's renowned for launching numerous new businesses and revenue lines in the organizations she has been associated with. Noopur will have a one-on-one with Vivek Mandhata, Head of Payments for India and Managing Director and Partner BCG. Noopur and Vivek will delve into the future of B2B payments, highlighting India's leadership in digital payments, the significant role of cash and checks in B2B transactions, emerging trends like automation, real-time payments, and fintech solutions for cross-border flows, along with the main pain points and potential innovations to streamline and enhance the B2B payment landscape. Boston Consulting Group is the thought leadership partner for GFF 2024.
Hi everyone, welcome to this podcast for GFF 2024. Today I am excited to be talking about a topic that I think when we say fintechs is normally spoken about very commonly, payments in India. India has obviously leapfrogged the world in terms of how we have taken the digital payments world by storm. UPI, everyone speaks about the volumes, the scale and the experience that it has provided. But I also wanted to touch upon BBPS, something that we don't normally say too much, but it has also tremendously changed the way the bill payment experience is done. And congratulations to you, Noopur, on how that platform has scaled. In fact, I was looking at the numbers and you've gone from same quarter last year, 300 million transactions to about 450 million now. At that scale, growing at 50% is a tremendous feat. And I think that says a lot about how our digital payments ecosystem has evolved. But when we speak to fintechs and founders and the banks and around us and ask what next in payments, typical answer comes, hey, retail journey has happened. Maybe it's time to look at B2B. Any thoughts on that, Noopur? How do you see the landscape?
No, that's absolutely correct, Vivek. And first of all, thank you for having me on this podcast. Really appreciate that. Yes, the growth has been good over the last 3 years that we were spun off as a separate entity. But more importantly, I think we ourselves believe that B2B is the next frontier. Over the last few years, we have seen that the investments in B2B enablement space has actually grown year on year by almost 50%. And that is the lead indicator of the kind of work that is happening in that space. We have solved the consumer to merchant payment issue by bringing in UPI through sound boxes, the proliferation of QR, so on and so forth. However, the retailer upward value chain is waiting to be disrupted. And we ourselves are doing a lot of work in that space. I would be happy to talk more to you about that. But I completely agree with the people who have the view that B2B is where the next set of unicorns will come from. There have been only 6 in the last 8 years, but many more to come in that space.
It's interesting you touched upon the whole unicorn space, right? Because fintechs, again, many of them claim to be working on this B2B space, right? And each one talks about a different element of B2B that they're talking about, whether it's the use cases around payment, whether it's use cases around just creating an online marketplace for businesses to come online. How do you see the fintech space in B2B evolving around us?
Yeah, sure. So Vivek, if you look at a typical financial hierarchy, on the bottom of the pyramid is payments and transactions, right? And if you look at it standalone, that problem has been solved for many years now through NEFT, RTGS being made, and available 24 by 7, or when we talk about retailer collections, so on and so forth, right? So payment and transaction standalone has been solved for. However, there the missing piece really is the reconciliation, because the businesses have their payment system which is slightly separate from their enterprise system. So there's a lot more work which can happen in that space. Above that really is the credit space, and while again there are attempts that have been made even in the DPI space through OKN, account aggregator, and others. But the credit itself is waiting for disruption through invoice financing. A lot more that can happen through Trades and some of the other platforms. Cash flow based financing, which is really the new age system, which is not yet available at scale in India, so on and so forth. So payments, reconciliation piece waiting to be disrupted, credit waiting to be disrupted, and of course, insurance for businesses. I think, our penetration is less than 1% there. So that is another area which might see a lot of interest in the coming years.
Very interesting. And when I speak to people around me, and businesses most importantly, right, when our clients, they never talk about payment as a usual problem, right? But you said there are other problems down the value chain that they typically cite and quote as issues. And therefore, the finance team and the procurement team are always at loggerheads and solving many problems manually and in an operationally complex way. You did mention that there is something that you are also looking at and doing on the B2B side. Would you want to talk about this to our users a little bit?
First thing first, you talked about the finance teams, procurement teams. Those are the issues for the larger corporates or even the medium-sized corporates. But in India, we have 6.3 million small and micro enterprises, right? They do not have the luxury of having teams doing, the follow-ups, the collections for them. And, I was reading up a research which mentioned that any businessman, partner, ends up spending almost 60% of their time in the non-market development activities, which includes, negotiation, just, following up on invoices, following up on collections, once the invoice becomes due, so on and so forth. End of the day, if you look at BBPS itself, we are a platform that is helping invoice collections faster for all our utility billers today. But if I just extend that proposition and make collections faster for even the value chain of business to business, I think there's a lot we can support, and we will be in a position to help all kinds of business enablement startups and functionaries, including ERPs, including fintechs, including banks. So we're really looking at working with the entire ecosystem to see how do we simplify.
What's going to be the role of some of these players now around this, right? So, I mean, like you mentioned, there are ERP players, there are fintechs who have tried to solve this in a closed loop basis, and there are specialists who provide reconciliation services. There are people who provide point to point connections that people have made. So, as you come into this space, what kind of a role will each of these people play in the overall ecosystem?
So before talking about their role, let me also talk about our role, right?
Mhm.
Irrespective of the size of the business, right? Whether you are a large corporate in services, manufacturing, distribution, trading, whatever have you, right? One of the things that you are most concerned about is data, right? And data from two perspectives. One, commercial data. You don't want your competitor to find out your commercial arrangements. And the
Yeah.
second thing there is your own distribution and relationship ecosystem. The value that a neutral platform brings in is the entire neutrality of saying that, hey, we are not a party, we are a no conflict entity, and we will help you protect that data and keep it within the two entities on both sides, buyer and supplier. So the interoperability function that we are now known for, and the neutrality function is what we bring to the table. And if we are able to give that comfort to ERPs, fintechs, banks alike, then we are talking about a place where on one side could be a Tally, on the other side could be a SAP, and they should be able to talk to each other irrespective of the size of the business. And that's what our ambition is, that we bring everyone on a single platform where the entire journey up to payment gets simplified. Post payment, the reconciliation gets simplified. And en route to that journey, maybe even a financing can get simplified tomorrow.
Nupur, you touched upon something that caught my attention, right? You talked about reminders for payments. There was an article that came also which talked about almost 10.7 lakh crore being the estimate for delayed MSME payments in the country. And we know there is an attempt to bring something in the income tax rules to try and capture this. But do you think a platform like this can help?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that is the starting hypothesis for our work on the B2B space. That how do we make the entire working capital availability much more faster across the value chain compared to what it is today, right? And like I mentioned, prior to payment itself, there is a long process that happens or precedes it, starting from discoverability. So, who's the best person to provide me the supplies? To negotiation, to just giving a purchase order, to actually formalizing the arrangement through an invoice or agreement. Uh, then logistics part of it, where the actual supply happens, and finally leading on to supplies having been done, how do I now get hold of the money that is due to me without really calling up the procurement team or the finance team a number of times, or reminding them through various means that, hey, my money is due. So the work that we're doing really tries to stitch a lot of these legs, from onboarding, discoverability, to invoice exchange, to invoice confirmation, to financing of that invoice if there's a special term available for early release, to finally helping reconcile as and when the payment comes in by sending very soft nudges rather than the hard collection calls that happen in today's time and age. So that's what we are attempting. It is a very audacious goal, but someone has to start to work on it, and who better than us?
And as you see this and as you interact with the businesses, are you seeing any resistance from some of the smaller players to go digital? Because, formalization is a journey that you also mentioned is happening around us with GST and Udyam and all of that coming together. There are still many small retailers and dealers and distributors who probably still operate offline, work with their portals of the corporates and the OEMs. This will mean that A, there is an opportunity for them to get some benefits, but B, it will also mean them coming into a little bit more formalized world. How do you see their reactions when you talk about this to them?
This 20% of transactions in B2B world even today happen in cash, right? Add on to it another 10% that happens using checks, right? If there's a seamless solution available, I see no reason why this cash and check portion can't be replaced. And that is just the beginning. See, two things have happened over the last 10 years. One is the GST journey, which the entire country has witnessed, and a number of more businesses are coming in the fold and raising their hand um, to put themselves up for GST enablement. The second thing which has happened is that with the proliferation of UPI again, a lot of money which is coming into the small businesses is not in cash anymore, but through UPI in a digital mode. Now, if I'm receiving the money in digital, I have to then forward it also in digital mode itself, rather than places. And if I contrast it with cash to cash, uh, exactly the opposite piece happens, because the money received is in cash. So I don't have a choice as a small retailer but not to pass the same cash on upwards, right? uh, so as digitization journey increases and UPI moves from the existing 350 million users to 700 million users, uh, the receipt will happen digitally, which means that the B2B value chain also start going digital. So that is one piece. The second is that to enable all of this, the entire process needs to be very, very simple. If you complicate it, saying that a retailer needs to go into 10 different platforms to make payments because he's receiving supplies from 10 different manufacturers or distributors, then he does not have an option but to then figure out what to do, what is easiest for him.
At GFF this time, as part of our flagship report, we are talking about how fintechs are building bridges. And I can see no better way that in terms of building bridges than what you're doing, because you're effectively saying that you're connecting the entire value chain through a seamless network and bringing together interoperability into the ecosystem. The one question, though, before I would like to just ponder upon is, change is always difficult. We've seen the Indian consumer adapt to change quite dramatically and quite well, to many surprises in that. How do you see that on the business side?
See, if you compare a retail customer with a business, the ask is slightly different, right? A retail consumer wants ease and speed of a transaction, right? Whereas a business looks for two things. One, you make it simple for me. Second, very important piece for which is much more cheaper, much more accessible and simpler to get, right? I think for businesses to adopt to some of the digital journeys, it has to be a credit first approach, or at least show them the path to getting much cheaper and simpler credit tomorrow, which might prompt them into the entire digital push, right? So if they see a light at the end of the tunnel in form of being able to expand their business by getting very low cost credit, I think they will be very eager to adopt any solution that comes to the market. So that's my view on that. Yes, change will be difficult, but I mean, overnight during COVID and prior to that during demonetization, all the retailers and small businesses very quickly moved from accepting cash to pasting QRs in their stores. The next level of that digitization can be equally fast if we provide the right incentive.
I'm quite excited by what you're saying. And I mean, as we look forward and fast forward 2, 3 years, maybe you and I will be sitting on a similar podcast talking about how this has come out successfully. I really wish you well, Noopur. I think this is a very, very interesting landscape. Like we said, B2B world, if we get it right, and especially with the interoperability and financing that you're talking about, we can really contribute significantly to that goal of getting to the 7 trillion economy that India is talking about in the next few years.
Thank you very much, Vivek, and thanks for having me here for the podcast. And I do wish for the benefit of our country that some of these initiatives really see an unprecedented trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of GFF 24 Show. If you have enjoyed this, make sure to tune in to the next episode releasing in just a few days.